Hi, my name is Christopher Perry. Welcome to PeriVision Loops, and this video is why PeriVision Loops. And if you've seen any of my previous videos, you'll see that I always ask, if this is the first time you're seeing the video, please watch why PeriVision Loops first. This is why PeriVision Loops. That's this video. In this video, we're going to go through the setup, how I approach the music, some of the rules I set for myself, and also how some of the previous equipment I used that actually didn't work out. So let's get to it. All right, initially what started me interested in getting looping is I watched a video by Elise Thoreau, I think, if I'm pronouncing that correct, and Elise, if it's wrong, sorry. She did this wonderful mashup between Radiohead and the Police, and she did it live. She put the drums down, and then she put the bass down, and she started playing the other instruments. Now, she had people off camera helping mix and turning this off and on, but essentially she still did it live. And at the time, I was working on playing Smith songs on the guitar, and I thought to myself, I wonder what it'd be like to try and loop the Smiths. Now, it's already pretty hard to try and play and sing at the same time, especially given that I'm not a very good singer. But to do that and compose as you go is already amazingly difficult. And then if that's not hard enough, I decided to add another rule. So I used to go busking when I lived in England with my mates, which is basically going to play on the streets. And you want to take the least amount of equipment you can with you. So same thing if you're doing an open mic, you want the least amount of stuff you can do. So the other rule I have for myself is whatever equipment I use has to be small, portable, battery operated. So those are my rules, but hey, challenge accepted. I decided, let's see if I can do it. So for looping the Smiths, the Cure, or anything else, obviously the more difficult the song is, the harder it is to loop. What makes the Smiths so difficult is playing Johnny Marr and singing Morrissey at the same time is incredibly hard, especially with some songs you just can't do it. So that added another level of complexity and difficulty for me. But I'll get to that in a second. So let's walk through the equipment. What's missing here in this equipment right now is drums. So I do have electric drums. I'm not a drummer, but I can play the drums. And it is much easier just to use a drum machine or pads to lay down the drum tracks. But as a glutton for punishment, I say I don't want to do that. I actually like the imprecision of, like, if I'm hitting the ride or I'm doing the hi-hats, or doing a roll, I like that it doesn't sound quite right. And so I want to capture that. What I will do in the very, very beginning, I would actually just capture the raw analog signals coming out of the drum machine. Later on, I used a MIDI, which I will talk about in post-production. But in the beginning, when I first started looping, I actually used a Boss RC20, which had 2 pads to it. I'm pretty sure it's a 20. Had 2 pads on it. And you could move between different patches. I thought, okay, this might work. I may be able to move between chorus, or verse, chorus, bridge, go back and forth. I found that it was way too difficult to do that. I even went as far as to buy a Boss FF7 external switch to add some more switches. And I just could not get it to work despite everything I tried. And I did spend a lot of time, put a lot of effort into it. I eventually gave up on that. And instead I decided, okay, let's just try a whole new direction. And instead I went with the iPad. Now, to get the iPad to work, you need to still get analog into digital, and I use something called an iRig, and we'll cover that in a second. But the reason I really like using the iPad is that it's small, portable, battery lasts a long time. But I also found a program called QuantiLoop. I looked at a bunch of looping programs, and I really love QuantiLoop, especially for live. But also I like QuantiLoop because for someone who's kind of, a little bit on the older generation side, I do like the pads, I like the dials, I like the physicality of what is represented in the program. And also what I like is I got this. This is a iRig Blue board, and these 4 pedals happen to align with these 4 pedals, which is fantastic. Also, bonus points, there's an extension for this thing that can connect to my FF7. So I can have 5 buttons or 6 buttons. So that is a really, really great, convenient thing. It extends it quite a bit. So that is the looper part. Now, like I said, I do have drums, so usually I pre-record the drums. So before I start anything, normally I will have the drums placed in advance. Now, how I set up these loops, I'm not going to get into the details of timing and how I set up the distance, but in general, the easiest way if you're just starting to set up a loop distance is actually loop the actual song. Take the song and actually loop the part of the chorus that you think you want to repeat. Loop the part of the verse that you think you want to repeat, or the bridge you want to repeat, or whatever. And actually practice with that and put them on the different tracks and feel like, are you able to construct the song and move through the song with different parts of the songs you want and make it sound reasonable? That also, aside from planning, helps you figure out how long each one of these patches need to be. So, which is really important. And they're not always going to be the same. In fact, most of the time they're going to be different lengths. Now, that being said, so normally I have my drums ahead of time. Now I need to get my guitar and bass and other things in there. And I have a Boss. I have a lot of Boss stuff. I have a Boss GT1 effects pedal. I used to have a whole bunch of regular effects pedals, those disappeared. So I got this. And what I like about this, it has 99 memory patches in it. And the advantage is that instead of trying to turn off each pedal off and on, or with how I used to use this, trying to go patch 1, patch 2, patch 3 to patch 1, I can just keep going up the patch tree, even if I'm repeating. So I could have my introduction guitar. Then I go up to the next one, that's the bass. Then I'm back to that intro guitar again. Now I'm to rhythm. Now I'm to distortion. Back to rhythm again. And you just keep climbing up. You have 99 patches, you have plenty of room. And it's very important, it's key in my mind, to simplify as much of the interface as you can. Because remember, you still have to play the song and sing the song while you're messing with your effects and changing patches on the looper. So you definitely want to try and simplify this as much as you can. So that's part of the puzzle, part of the game of playing this thing. Now, you'll notice I had 2 cables coming out of this thing. One cable is actually going to my recorder. This records just what comes out of the effects pedal. The second cord goes to this thing called an iRig adapter. This is a to D, and I like this iRig because it's simple, no power, and works pretty well. Now you'll notice I do not have a patch coming out of the amplifier. With the way this is supposed to work is you could guitar in and this goes out to your amp. It never sounded right to me. I could never get it to work. So instead, I just go straight out of the iPad. I take the headphones out of the iPad and I drop it here into my mixer. Now if I was doing a live show, I would just take this straight to amp. But I'm actually recording it here on a separate track, and when I do post-production, I'll explain that. But what this gives me is each guitar or sound raw, and then this gives me the live, the accumulative sound. And here, this other one, just to let you know, this is a microphone. For the microphone, I actually have a Quantum Loop, or a Mic Mechanic TC Alcyon. Because I am not putting the mic through this, I need something else to give me reverb and everything else. Just gives it to me. I do use the autocorrect, although I found myself using it less and less and less and less. I'm kind of starting to become less enamored with it over time, but I still use it a little bit. And that is the setup, physically, of how I get everything into, how I route all my music to eventually get to my amplifier here, which unfortunately you can't see, but that's okay. So that is the setup. Now, how I actually play it, how I go about it. So if you, a lot of people when they loop, by the way, a lot of people don't even like to use the drums. They'll do something like this, or they'll use their voice, but I'm not into that. But something about the Smiths, what makes the Smiths hard for me is, so let's play this riff really quick. And it goes on. There is no way I can play this riff and sing at the same time. And I've tried. I just can't do it. The only way, if I want to sing this, is I have to eventually just play it as a rhythm. So there's that added challenge for me is how do I get the chorus verse, although it's not a true chorus verse, but how do I set that up, get that recorded live, and then find room to sing? So if you listen to Some Girls Are Bigger Than Others, you'll notice that I do not play the bass part on that because I just could not figure out a way to do it, so I pre-recorded the bass. I may eventually go back to it and try and find a way to do it, but so far I haven't found one. So that is one of the compromises I made, is that to make it flow, make it work, I pre-recorded the bass. Now, other songs, you can sing to it. So if you think about Shoplifters of the World, which is, and you just kind of play in this rhythm, this is very easy to sing to. But here's another problem. So let's say this is going to be our verse. So this is the loop. And it just keeps going over and over again. Great, right? Now, chorus, however, goes from G. Now, in the song, what Johnny's doing is as he moves from verse to chorus, he has this nice climb. So it goes from the E to the G. That's very nice. However, because we have that loop, we can't put that in there. And also because of the way it's playing, going from D to A to G just doesn't sound right. So what I did as a compromise is I said, okay, so for 4 of the bars, I'm going to play the A to D part. But the next 4, I'm going to reverse it. So basically, if you're playing it quick, you'll barely notice it. But what that does is that kind of makes the transition to going to the G a little bit better. So going, in my opinion, going from A to D to G feels nicer than going from D to A to G. Mostly because you kind of have this nice little climb thing going on. Here's that bass part. So that's one of the cool little things. This is the fun part. This is the little tricks, the little things that you have to kind of solve to make the song feel good. Now, and then for every song you play, be it The Smiths, The Cure, be it Radiohead, be it, I don't know, whatever you want, every song's going to have its own challenge, its own little difficulty, and that's the fun part, is how do you solve it. Now, there's that part, right? But what you'll notice when you watch most, and so far all the videos, is usually towards the end of the song, at least when I get past all the lyrics, I start to change the song. I'll take the song in a different direction, because one of the nice things about looping is once that end loop, that last loop is running, you can just keep putting things on top of it. So you can just put little riffs on there and just, add a little riff, add a little part, add a little whatever you want. And as you build it up, you can actually take the song into a new direction. And that's the other fun thing for me to do, is where else can this song go? Aside from where it was originally planned, and how do I take it there? So these are the things I'm doing when I'm looping, and this is why PeriVision Loops, is to solve the puzzle and to see, once the puzzle's been solved, where else can you take it? Now, that's how we at least get the live part down. Now let's talk about post-production. So hang on. So welcome to post-production. Now what we are looking at here, this is a program called Audacity, and Audacity comes at a great price, free, open source. And if you're not already committed to a recording editing software package, this is a good place to start until you kind of figure out what you want to do. It's not that easy to use in some respects, but it's not that terribly complex either. So let's just get straight into it. Now we have this track here. This is called Mono 2. This is from the recorder, as you saw in the previous earlier in the film. And this is the cumulative sounds that I've been building up over time using the looper. The second track, this is where I have each individual sound. So here's the guitar intro. This is probably verse, bass, chorus, bass, verse, bass, chorus, and here's a solo. So here is the guitar parts isolated. And our goal is to use a combination of the drum sounds, here's the drum, and these isolated guitar sounds to reproduce this cumulative sound. And we want to do that so that we can edit each one of these sounds, volumes or tones as we like. So the really good trick here is the drums. So here is the verse drums, and this was taken from the iPad, and actually this was recorded straight from the drums, I believe. Actually, I used MIDI, but let's ignore that part. Many of the early stuff was just straight from the drums to the looper. Once I set, beats per minute and how many bars, so that you have a loop, and then normally I use some sort of metronome to keep me in time, and I just keep doing it until I kind of get it right and the loop sounds right. So now we know with this WAV file exactly what the distance of one loop is going to be for the verse. So this is where we're going to start. Now, what we have to do is we need to line up these drums with the sound sample. So I'm going to actually move the cumulative down here, and then I'm going to bring this a little bit closer. And what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in and try to align these WAV files. Now you'll notice that this WAV file is a little noisier than the drums, and that's because the guitar is playing while this is going on. So that's where a lot of this noise is coming in. So we have to kind of be a little bit careful how we align these things. And we do want to try and get as close as we can, like literally down to looking at each sample point. And because the guitar is playing during this time, you kind of want to jump around a little bit and kind of cross-check and see if you have it mostly lined. And this looks pretty good, so I'm pretty satisfied with that. So what that means is that if I take this drum loop and then we're going to repeat, so we'll just repeat once, it's the same as running the looper. So I can repeat this 15 times, it'll run as a loop. The only reason I'm not doing it more is because then I have to go to chorus, which is right here. And just for convenience sake, I'm going to go ahead and align it. And you'll notice that it snaps. That snap is a lifesaver, and you're going to see me using it over and over and over again. But now that that's there, I'm going to actually reduce that because we're only going to just show you the basics, and then we can go from there. Now, here was the introduction part of it, and I also know here is actually the beginning loop for the verse. So how do I capture that? Well, what I can do is I can mouse over where the start and stop is for the bass loop, click, and then split the clip. And I can do the same thing here. Just make sure this is, Control Z. Make sure I have it there, split the clip. Oh, it didn't work, did it? All right, some things went wrong. Let's try again. All right, so what we want to do is, now that we, okay, start. So we're going to move this over here for just convenience sake. Now, we need to capture, we need to cut this part of the sample. So this was the intro, then here's the verse, such that I can repeat it with these drums. And using this snapping, I can click this point, split the clip, click this point, split the clip, and there we go. So now we have an exact match between here and here. So what we will do is we will copy this, Control C, generate, tracks, add new mono track, and paste. And there we go. We now have a matching sound with our drum. So I'll bring it up a little bit. And so now we can test this out. So we will repeat once. Oh. Let's select it. That might help. So let's repeat. And for this, I'm going to repeat. Whoops. I keep forgetting to select. I get in a hurry, especially when I'm trying to demo something. Repeat once. And there we go. So let's test this out. So why don't we, now before we do that, we need to make sure this is muted. Well, actually, no, we already moved it. It should be okay. So let's try it out. Sounds pretty good. So I actually did need to mute that for a test. So for a further test, let's mute the loop, and we will mute the source, and we'll only play here. So let's test it again. Sounds like a good loop. So that is the basics of what we're just going to keep doing this over and over and over again. So same thing on the verse. So actually, it looks like the verse is over here. I want to make sure I do have that selected right. Yeah. And then up here, here's the verse. So you would do the same thing, is that you would mouse over here, cut, mouse over here, cut, copy it, bring it down, and then duplicate it as needed. So that is actually it. That's the basics of it. You will find that you'll be creating a whole bunch of tracks. You'll create one for the guitar, one for bass, one for the other guitars, so forth and so on. Now I'll also show you a cool trick. So I'm just going to grab this real quick, and I am going to again copy and create a new mono track, paste, and bring this up closer. Now here's the cool trick. So this is already selected. I'm going to put an effect on. So in this case, I'll do reverb. And I'm going to select wet only, which means only the reverb sound, not the original sound itself, and place it there. Now, how does that sound? So if you listen to it, you hear just the reverb. Now you can make a really kind of cool effect by taking the original sound, moving it slightly, to the left, maybe 30 or 40. Take this sound and pan it all the way to the other side. And then if you listen to it, now you need stereo headphones to hear it, but it gives it just a little bit more, life, a little more space. And then also, a helpful trick is to rename these things, and it helps a lot. So we're going to call this guitar. Actually, I usually number them, so guitar 1, and then this is going to be guitar 1 reverb. Why you do that? So when we go to our mixing board, we can actually see the drums in our guitars and the guitar reverb. And typically, I will bring the reverb part down a little bit. So this, I don't know, yeah, 30% I guess is okay. So now that it's down a little bit, when we play it, so let's go back and play this again. It gives it that little hint of space. And you can kind of play with the volumes and play with the spacing till you kind of get the feel that you want. And a lot of times what I'll do is the first 2 guitars, I will do this little trick on it. And I might put one guitar on one side, the other guitar on the other side. You can do this with the drums as well. You can take the drums, duplicate it, add an effect, and kind of shift it off just slightly. And it gives it a little more space and a little more dynamic feeling. So that is the basics. That's really how you can reproduce. And then, of course, same thing here. We need to duplicate it. So repeat. I keep seeming to do that. So let's actually select it and then repeat. I don't know why I'm doing this, because it's obvious how it works, but I just do it. So we can keep repeating this, the verse, chorus, all the way through the rest of the song, all the way to the end, and we can control and tune each one of our instruments. So for post-production. And then when you're done, you can either choose to, let me see, I've kind of forgotten where it is now. It's under File, yeah, Export. You can export straight as an MP3 with everything, or a WAV file if you want to bring it to some other program. You can also export selected audio, and this is useful, which we will talk about in the next part of post-production, where I actually use a different program to do even more editing, where I have a little more fine control. So let's get to that one now. Okay, so let's talk about another post-production tool. This is the Ableton Live 11 Lite, which if you buy the Focusrite Solo, which I showed a picture earlier, it comes free with that. So try again. All right, so now let's take another look at another post-production tool. This here is the Ableton Live 11 Lite. This program is free if you get the Focusrite Solo, which is what I use. I highly recommend it. The Focusrite is a great A to D and D to A, I guess, converter, and it works really well with Windows PCs. I haven't used it with a Mac, so I don't know. Now, I'm just now starting to learn how to use this program, so there's a lot I do not know yet, but I'll talk about kind of how I've been using it so far. So if you remember with Audacity, I had my different tracks and I would repeat them. Well, I did the same thing here. I would bring in a track, so I would save each track one at a time. I would bring them in and I would simply drop them and repeat them in place. And it works basically the same way. So as you put it in, play it, everything just kind of repeats. So I have my drums here, here's guitar one here, this is where the vocals are going to kick in. Now, that works well enough. And then as you can see, as the song goes on, you can see more and more instruments coming into play until we get towards the end, where everything's kind of looped together and playing with each other. And you can also look at it here from this point of view, where we have the mixer, where we can change volumes, and, similar things. Now, what I like about this is, unlike Audacity, I can make all adjustments live as everything is playing, and the effects are just easier for me to work with because they're more graphical. It's easier for me to look at them and see what's going on, and it just makes me feel a little more comfortable using this setup. Now, the other thing that I like about this, and I'm still just learning how to use it, I'm just discovering this now, is you can set up a drum to have a collection of clips. So actually, it's probably easier if I just tick this here. This is a drum that I've defined. So this is actually my drums from my MIDI, which I can swap the drums in and out as I choose. And then I just add tracks. And I can drop these tracks in and control when things are showing up and not showing up. And just, for me, it just makes it just easier for me to see what's going on versus having all these wave files. Now, this assumes, of course, that you're going to use the same effects setup for the instruments you bring in. And for me, the last three guitars, I will do my minor adjustments the same way, so I don't need to mess with it. And as far as volume controls, I can control that here. But what I would really like to learn is how to actually set up MIDI with a little bit more control than what I have here. And I really haven't figured that out yet. So I still kind of find myself restricted by the one channel, but eventually I'll kind of figure it out. So this is great. I'm still using the same kind of approach that I've been using. But I'll show you something else. I think it's with Shoplifters, not sure. Let's open that program. And yes, here we are. So up here you can see that I'm actually using my MIDI drums. And this is going to be the way I do things in the future. So I actually record using MIDI into Ableton directly. And then I can tweak the drums or make whatever little minor adjustments I need to make. Also, I can play with my different instruments, move them around. But what's nice is, unlike with Audacity, I can change a drum out. If I don't like the hi-hat I'm using or tom I'm using, I can change it. I can change the value. I can change the tones. So that one
thing, the ability to edit my drums in post, was enough for me to stop using Audacity and move to Ableton. Now, I haven't completely left Audacity, keep in mind, because as I showed you before, I still need to bring the instruments when I isolate them and bring them in one by one. So it's not a perfect, I can't do everything in this program yet, but hopefully as I learn more and more, I'll be able to do it. So for now, actually that's not the right file, but it doesn't matter. For now, it's a combination of learning how to use Audacity to create each sample, the drum sample, guitar sample, bass sample. Once those samples are created, I bring them into this program, then I do the rest of my work here. So that's how I do post. If you want to spend, I'm sorry, if you have more questions about this program specifically, again, I probably won't know the answer. You can ask it in the channel. I will try to answer it if I know, but I am still just learning this myself. So hopefully I can help you, but if not, there's so many videos out there on how to use this program. I'm sure somebody will have an answer. All right, so that concludes this part of post-production, and let's start looking at some videos. So you should see below a list of videos if you're in the blog, or if you're in YouTube watching this, I'll have a link to the blog where I have all my other stuff. And then also, by the way, if there's any really good singers out there, male or female, who could do the Smiths, let me know, because every time I hear my vocal track, I'm thinking to myself, no matter how many effects I put on this, you can't fix a non-great singer. All right, we'll see you out there as we continue to loop. Bye-bye.